He was the guitarist for one of the great progressive bands, and he carved out a successful solo career for the last 4 decades. She's an 8-time winner at the Blues Music Awards, bringing wide-ranging sounds to the genre. Our guests this week are Steve Hackett and Ruthie Foster on the VVN Music Podcast. Hi, and welcome to episode 33 of the VVN Music Podcast. I'm Roger Wink, and we have a double bill this week with Steve Hackett and Ruthie Foster. Steve Hackett is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Genesis, which he joined in December 1970 to replace founding guitarist Anthony Phillips. He stayed with the group for almost 7 years, during which they led the way in progressive rock with albums such as Selling England by the Pound, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and Wind and Wuthering. As a solo artist, Steve has released almost 20 studio albums along with 5 LPs of classical music and a long list of live sets. He continues the tradition of the early Genesis sound in concert with shows that highlight the band's pre-1980 music in the first half while concentrating on Steve's solo years during the second set. His latest, The Night Siren, is both a warning on a time in history with extreme strife and division and a celebration of diversity with artists from around the world. Your new one, the Night Siren, is out on March 24th.
That's right, yes.
My understanding is that the title of the album refers to an alarm sounding to warn of basically distress. In this case, in the world, we do seem to be in some sort of a change period. Was this something that you wanted to get out to the public through your music?
One or two of the tracks have got a political edge to them, but they're really stories. The first one is called Behind the Smoke. It's really about refugees fleeing a war zone, and which is pertinent to today. But my ancestors in the late 1800s, when they came to the UK from Poland via Portugal, went through a similar process, except that they were accepted. The world hadn't quite opted for a kind of fortress mentality in the way that things seem to be going at the moment. So, that was a crisis for their particular time, and we have a crisis on our hands now. And so there are a couple of tracks on the album that refer to that, and basically there is an underlying message of peace and fellowship and many other things that we're in danger of losing with the kind of polarized extremist politics of today. I'm very worried that all the freedoms that we've fought for in the past seem to be being eroded, it seems.
Yes, we're definitely having that over here, as I know you are over there. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Very tricky time for the world at the moment, and we've basically got a world in crisis at the moment. And unless we make friends with our neighbours, we have to face the fact that the awful thing that everyone dreaded happening, which is that various other nations will get nuclear capability and not be afraid to use it, might just become the terrible reality of the nightmare that we all dreaded. So it's a damn good time to get on with our neighbours, I think. Whether our neighbours are next door or somewhere away. And I think, we interfere in the politics of other nations with proxy wars, etc., at our peril. And I think that the level of political leadership is extremely irresponsible at the moment. Irresponsible things going on in this country, in Europe. We're potentially looking at the disintegration of Europe as we know it. I know that I'm taking things on a little bit further, the logical conclusion of the way things are going at the moment. The idea of Brexit, and which I'm against. And it's a very worrying time. But meanwhile, I do what musicians do, write songs about the things that concern me. And apart from that, I like to think it's a very interesting record that I've made.
It is. I mean, the Behind the Smoke, the opening song, which
Yeah.
you already mentioned, is just really stunning, not only from its message, but also from the arrangement of it. Now, did you do all the arranging on the album also?
Well, basically, there was a team of 3 writers. It's myself, my wife, and Roger King. And then we incorporate other people as well. So it's mainly arranged by those 3 people. But there are 20 people on the album. We have Israeli, Palestinian working together, people from Iceland, from Hungary, from the United States, from England, from Azerbaijan, and it's that kind of album.
Were these people that you had become familiar with from touring and just through the business, or were there some that you were more recommended to you?
There were 2 that were recommended, and that's Kobe and Mira, and that's Israel and Palestine. The others I was familiar with, and they were already friends, so that wasn't hard to assimilate and cooperate with them. Sometimes it was eyeball to eyeball, other times it was at a distance, and people file sharing. But it's a mixture. Some things done in professional studios, some things done in people's living rooms, other times rehearsal facilities, but a bit like making a film with the second camera unit. So it's all been extremely flexible.
It is amazing what can be done today between, from remote locations and
Yes.
sending files and over the internet. It's so different from having to be in the studio or send tapes or whatever,
Yes, yeah. It's the way modern records are made, apart from with groups, of course. But when strangers work with each other, there are a tremendous amount of things that can be done at a distance, and I think if you choose the right people, they will give you very, very professional, very interesting performances. And I've had to do very little correction on anything that anyone has sent me. It's all been perfectly in time and perfectly in tune, and that's extraordinary.
You said in another interview that I saw that you were particularly happy with your own vocals on the album, which leads me to believe that you have concerns about maybe some of the past work that you've done. You're coming to terms with your own voice then and with styling, so forth?
I think so. Yes, I think I don't stand alone when I'm doing vocals. There are a number of singers on the album. I do most of the vocals, but there are 3 different girls who are singing on it, and at least 2 other guys that I can think of just off the top of my head. So sometimes it's standalone lead vocals, other times it's a harmony picture. I don't have a problem with the idea of singing my own stuff. I've had 1 or 2 hits singing my own stuff, so that it's not really a problem. And I also worked with Chris Squire. We were doing our own vocals on the Hackett album, and we enjoyed each other's vocals. So and that doesn't mean that I won't work with another singer at some point. In fact, when I'm out doing the live stuff and when we play the Genesis tunes, it's normally Nad Sylvan who does most of those vocals. So I don't have a Genesis voice, but then I have another kind of voice that's quite deep and quite resonant. It's a different approach again. Singers are very different from each other, and it's very subjective, the idea of, well, do you like this person's voice or do you like that person's voice? And it depends what style you're singing in as well.
Do you do anything in particular to keep your voice in shape?
Well, I tell you what I try and do is I try not to get colds if I can avoid it. I do take vitamin pills. I don't smoke, not these days anyway, not for a very long time. So apart from that, try and get as much sleep as possible. So I do take care of myself rather more comprehensively than when I was young and immortal, of course. I'm aware that I'm extremely mortal, and very human, and you do have to be careful, I think, the older that you get.
Another track I was impressed with was El Nino, which is, even though it's probably one of the heavier songs on the album, has a real symphonic structure to it almost. Almost like it goes through movements.
Well, yeah. We have a string section, which is actually two people tracked up, plus samples. And the lady who plays violin also happens to play viola. And she happens to be brilliantly good. We also have a double bass bowed by my friend Dick Driver, Christian Townsend, Dick Driver. So it's got a symphonic feel, but then it also has a whole tribe's worth of drums on it as well. So it's extremely soundtrack-like in a sense. So you have orchestra plus and group plus. It is a big noise, and it's funny enough, that one sounds great in surround. I was just checking the surround next today. It sounds magnificent. It's a bit like standing in the eye of the storm. Listening to that in surround, it's one of the best surround mixes.
I can imagine it would be, because it is just such a huge sound. Anything But Love seems very much a bit of a change for you as far as guitar style goes.
Well, there are two guitar styles basically on that. It starts off with flamenco style, then it goes into the tune, which somebody said to me today, they thought it sounded a little bit like flamenco meets Fleetwood Mac meets early Cream. And so all of those things, in a sense, are possible. But there are two, as I say, two distinct guitar styles, one acoustic and the other one electric, in a kind of psychedelic style, free kind of style, improvised.
It's funny, you follow El Nino, which was this huge, big piece with the very, I want to say, tender and beautiful other side of the wall, and it's such a change of pace between the two.
Yeah, that's different. That one's a love song. Think that there's a little bit of a story that goes with it. The idea of I visited a garden in England with my wife Jo, and in summer, and what was very beautiful about this, there was a wall at one point and a walled up gateway, and we came up with a whole story that we thought might go with that, and the idea of a couple who'd existed at an earlier time, almost like ghosts, but they weren't allowed to be together. So that was the idea of the other side of the wall, and the other side, in fact, the idea of the spirit world, and one couple in spirit finding their echo in another couple living today. So it's a rather romantic idea and poetic, and it's a heavily layered thing in terms of a whole ton of vocals, which I did on that. I did all the harmonies myself on the thing.
Yeah, it's a really, really nice song.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
I think one of the other songs on the album, which is very political in its statement, is the song West to East.
Yeah, really, it's. I think it's a bird's eye view of war, and the worrying trend towards watching things on TV, watching an airstrike on TV being effective, and then seeing people literally crawling around afterwards. It's just extraordinary stuff. But I think that TV can be extremely desensitizing. The idea of watching something rather like a game show. But this is really, people's lives, and I don't think it should be the stuff of mainstream TV.
For some people, I think it, and of a generation, it's sensitizing because during World War I, even World War II, I think the horrors of war weren't, for you in England it was, but for us in the United States, it wasn't really known. And then when it started showing up on our TVs, you started to find more and more people against war than there were in the past. So I think it can go both ways.
Well, I agree. Basically, it's a song that is a call for peace, and compassion. Many years ago, I was involved with a thing called Rock Against Repatriation, and that was to try and help the Vietnamese boat people. I was involved with sending lawyers over to Hong Kong to try and help the screening process so that people were given a fair hearing, because this terrible idea of classifying refugees as economic migrants in order to salve the conscience of various nations is anathema to me. And I do think that borders are overrated, and I do think that they are a way of inflicting violence on poor people. And we've got a terrible world crisis at the moment. We've created this situation whereby people are fleeing and dying in their thousands, and it seems as if more people are just going to die on borders if we don't manage to assimilate them. And I realize that populist politics means that people are hardening their hearts and just saying, on the borders of Hungary, tons of people are just going to sit there and suffer throughout the winter. And there's a humanitarian crisis that's going on. And meanwhile, more and more right-wing governments seem to be being elected, and I'm very worried about it. I'm very worried about the amount of press that Farage gets in our country, and Le Pen in France, and I'm sure Hitler seemed like a great idea at the time. Someone who was going to make Germany great again. Yeah, the world is in crisis at the moment, and you can't just sort of say, we just get a strong man in, and that'll sort everything out. I think adopting a fortress mentality, it just isn't going to wash. Anyway, we could stay on politics all day and avoid music, but it's one part of the album, I would say. I'm trying to show that it is possible for people to work together from even the nations that certainly don't see eye to eye and normally inflict violence on each other.
You're coming to the U.S. in just a couple of weeks and bringing your Genesis Revisited with Classic Hackett here. I understand that you're concentrating on tracks from Wind and Wuthering this time.
With the Genesis portion of the show, yes. What I will do is 2 sets, and I'm concentrating on the 40th anniversary of Wind and Wuthering. I was in America 40 years ago, literally, promoting Wind and Wuthering with Genesis. Not only are we doing that, we're doing one of the tracks that was recorded at the same time, which didn't make it onto the album, but was part of an EP called Inside and Out. The very record company that I'm signed to, Inside Out, has been able to take its title from that. It's become a very popular concept in itself. And so I'm doing that, but I'm also playing stuff from the new album, and I'm doing stuff from the Night Siren as well, in the solo set. So we have a solo set, we have a group set, and with the Genesis stuff, I'll be doing a track from each of the albums I recorded with Genesis. So they're all represented in some way or another.
And not only is it the 40th anniversary of Wind and Wuthering, but it's also the 40th anniversary of your leaving Genesis. I assume that one and the other are not really related.
No, actually, I think that Wind and Wuthering I think was a beautiful album, which has already been extraordinarily successful. It's sold bucket loads. It sold millions, and I'm celebrating that. I'm very proud of that. I didn't leave the band because I didn't like the album. That's not how it worked. I basically wanted to have a parallel solo career, and that wasn't on offer at the time. It was considered to be divisive, and I thought, well, I serve no master other than music, and I can't afford to have stillborn brain children. Not then, not now. I'm very much involved in music all the time.
You recently wrote on your site about the loss of Team Rock and the three magazines. It must be great for you to hear that the three magazines have been bought up again.
It's very good news. I believe Future Music are involved with that, so it looks like they're going to be back in the British high streets. They've done a great job with music in this country, and they've repopularized progressive music. It's got a huge following, and I think they've done a great job, and it's wonderful to know that they'll be back soon.
Yeah, my understanding is that they actually had the next issue of all three pretty much done, but then they closed before they could publish, so they should be out soon.
Yeah, well, it's good to have their stuff stockpiled. They're very organized, and I'm sure they'll go from strength to strength.
The last time we talked, Phil Collins was discussing possibly getting back into music, and now that he is there any kind of talk at all about a reunion of the original Genesis members?
Well, I'll let you know the moment I've heard of that. I hear all sorts of rumors, and last time I spoke to Tony Smith, he said, that it was just a rumor. So I think everyone's got, commitments outside the band. I know that Phil's got, gig commitments. I've got shows booked throughout the year. So I think the earliest that would happen, if it happened, would be the following year. If I was to be involved, and I think it highly unlikely. I haven't had that call for a very long time. I think probably about 10 years ago we were talking about trying to put together a team that might do Landmark Down on Broadway, but there wasn't really enough common ground for everyone to get together and do what came naturally to young guys in their early 20s. I'm always up for it, but I wouldn't hold your breath for that.
Steve Hackett's latest album, The Night Siren, is out this Friday, March 24th. Ruthie Foster is one of the greats of contemporary blues music. A 3-time Grammy nominee and an 8-time winner at the Blues Music Awards, her accolades don't adequately portray the wide array of musical genres that she brings to her music. As a child, Foster sought out music from a wide variety of styles, from pop to soul to country, all of which she brought to her sound. She self-released her first 2 albums before signing with Blue Corn Music in 2002, with which she has now released 8 albums. A master of live performing, her shows seek to both entertain and educate about the music that she loves. Her latest album, Joy Comes Back, continues her tradition of mixing original music with Ruthie's interpretations of others' songs, both classic and contemporary. We talked to Ruthie from her home outside of Austin, Texas. Are you going to South by Southwest at all?
I am doing something on Thursday with Amazon, but other than that, I'm just taking care of business regarding my new CD. So, yeah, I'm doing one thing. That's about it.
From my understanding, it's a bit more than just your latest release. It was also kind of a therapy for you while you were going through a kind of a breakup in a relationship, correct?
That's correct. It was safe haven for me to go in and record while I was actually touring, in between touring and all of that.
I know that you've had numerous awards at the Blues Awards and been nominated for blues albums at the Grammys and so forth, but your style really takes in so many different styles of music, from gospel to soul to jazz and beyond. My understanding is that you kind of sought out and listened to all types of music when you were young, and that influenced you to go that way.
Yeah, I think it's part of growing up in Texas. We're kind of exposed to all different types of music here, from gospel to, a lot of folks know a lot of blues music came out of the state, and even the conjunto and Tejano music and the Czech music, and just a real mix of folks here, and that definitely influenced my musical taste. And that's pretty much what you hear. You hear different elements of most of those different genres in my shows too.
It's important, I think, to expose, people need to expose themselves to a lot of different types of music. It's terrible, at least to me, when somebody says, well, I don't like country music, it's too twangy. I don't like hip hop, it's not music. I don't like Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald because it's old. You know, you're missing so much by not exposing yourself to all of the music.
I agree. I really, truly agree. And I think that's something that people take away from my shows. I once in a while, I will get people who claim that they didn't like blues music at all. It was too depressing or whatever the reason. But they saw another side of it because I don't just bring the genre. I try to bring kind of an education about the blues. The blues is just about life. And, being a witness to, having a witness to, living, it's just really about everyday living. And plus, I think, what I bring to blues is I bring those different elements of gospel and folk, to the genre. I like to think I do anyway.
It comes out also in the albums and especially a lot of times in the songs you choose to cover. And I think the best example on the new album is your cover of Black Sabbath's War Pigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was an experiment more than anything. Again, listening to different types of music and, like a lot of college people that went to college, I was way into my rock music. I always had friends who would bring different types of records over, and that's how I got into listening to Black Sabbath and a lot of the rock bands that were popular during that time and even before that time. Yeah, I love Son House. I love playing the resonator. I don't travel with it as much because it's a lot of, I already travel with one guitar, so there would be a lot of guitars. I was recording something else, and I had the resonator, and I thought that it would be kind of fun to just play around with that song with a resonator, just with a slide. Because to me, the intro to War Pigs is blues. It's a blues line. Melodically, it's a blues lick. So I've always heard it that way, and I just thought it would be fun to break it down and bring that song back. Plus, it's kind of relevant it's interesting how relevant it still is in this time.
One of the really great musical experiences of my own lifetime was a long time ago when I was in high school. As you know, Son House spent a lot of the last years of his life in Rochester. And somebody went down into the city and picked him up and brought him out to our school, and he just kind of sat and played for a while, and it was truly amazing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think I did hear that he was up in that area.
The title track of the album, Joy Comes Back, which you did release a video of, is definitely much more gospel-based. It's a great song.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a tune brought to me by my producer, Dan Barrett, by Sean Stapleton. I think he lives over in the Northeast in the Boston area. Or at least he was at the time. And it really said a lot about where I was standing in my life. I was in this place where I was just ready for some good news, needed some good news. And that's what this song says. And the album kind of, in a roundabout way, did a full circle back to that, I think, musically, because it took about 2.5 years to make the album itself. So that particular song kept standing out as a theme to get back to. Sean allowed me to write an extra verse to it. So in that way, I got a co-write out of this song, which is that was a thrill for me to get a chance to at least have a little bit of a say and add to the song in some way. But I think it's just one of those hallelujah chorus songs that it's definitely part of what I do live. It really works in.
Your last album, I know you wrote a lot of the music for. This one, you have just one song that you wrote alone. How many of the other songs, other than Joy Comes Back, did you actually contribute your own writing to?
I didn't, and I think that was just where my head was at the time. I did write some, and I had been sitting on a lot of tunes before that, but none of them really worked with the theme of this record. And again, it really wasn't much of a theme I had been looking at and looking for. I kind of wanted the record to be about just getting feelings and emotions out. And if we got enough of a group of songs to make a record, then that's great. Yeah, I didn't write much on this one, as I didn't write much on the last one either. I really became a fan of music. I wanted to just go back to listening. And that's how a lot of these songs came about, listening to groups like the Weepies. I've always loved them, and Dan and I had just gone to see them in concert here in Austin. A few weeks before, we sat and listened to some of their music. And so that's where the Forgiven song really kicked off this album. I wanted to record that song because it's pretty much where I was sitting in my life. And then, it kind of broke me open and gave me a chance to really do a little more recording with other songs I really liked, and listen to a few more writers here in Austin. Grace Pettis had written a lot of great songs. I knew Grace, and I knew her dad too. So she brought a few songs in that ended up on this record. Yeah, we just kind of, let the songs come to us, really, as we were recording.
I assume that you actually do the choosing of the songs. You very rarely have a producer come to you and say, "Hey, I think you should record this." You really are actively involved in the choosing of the songs that you cover.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's important because I'm the one out there singing these every week. So, yeah, that's important to me. I want to record what I want to, things I want to say, things I want to relate to people. So, and things that even relate to my own life. So I think it's important to be present when it comes to picking material for my records.
From what I understand, you have said that albums in the past had been kind of a job. It was your job to go in and record the albums, and I assume it was sort of as a way to work towards your live shows. But this one was different. It was more organic, that you had much more involved with it creatively and emotionally.
I think, and it's no throwback to. It's not a slap to any of my previous records. I enjoyed making those records. This was just done differently. It was done in my hometown. I was able to go home and sleep in my own bed after recording. There were some days when we recorded, I would show up for recording and we wouldn't record because I just wasn't in a place to be in front of a microphone and trying to interpret a song I didn't write. So some days Dan and I would just sit on the porch and drink coffee and talk about life and our kids and go have lunch and then go home. So in that way, it was very organic, and it left me really open to whatever needs to happen. It wasn't one of those albums I had to put together or felt like I had to put together in a week, because that's all the time I got with my producer, with the musicians, and the time off the road to record. I really took my time, and I really wasn't, I got used to putting out a record every 2 years, and I really didn't think I was ready to record at all, and I didn't see myself putting out another record. So in that way, this record really was organically, because I was not in a place to record at all when Dan and I met. He and I met through our kids. He was just walking his kid around the neighborhood in a stroller. So I was out in my yard, watering my yard. So it just kind of happened that way.
Well, you've been recording for Blue Corn Records for well over a decade. I think this is like your seventh or eighth album for them. Is it, you must have a really good working relationship with them too, so that probably makes it much easier to be able to go about such things as the recording process on your own terms.
Exactly. I really didn't want to be in a place in this music industry, this music business, where I felt I had to put out a record. And Blue Corn never did that with me. Nor does I can't say that about my management. They're here to guide my career. I'm sure they would love to see me put out a record every 2 years, maybe even more than that. But that's what I do love about working with Blue Corn. They never get in the way of what I want to do, which is really important, the most important thing, or when. Denby Abel, who's the president, has always been I've always considered him a friend and very much a partner in what I do recording wise and even in the time of right now before putting out a CD, there's a lot of touring involved and a lot of PR involved, and he gets in there. He rolls up his sleeves and he digs in as a record company and helps support me in a lot of ways. So that has a lot to do with my relationship with Blue Corn. It's worked, so why try to fix something that works?
Derek Trucks, I know, plays guitar, I think, on the title track from the album. Who else do you have guesting?
We got Willie Weeks on bass on a song. I think it's just Open Sky he's on. A lot of Austin players. Mr. Warren Hood. Warren Hood is the son of Champ Hood. A lot of folks may know. We got Joe Vitale on drums, who played for Crosby, Stills and Nash, and God knows so many other people. He's even been in a few movies. Joe Vitale was in the studio working with another artist when we grabbed him to put a few drum tracks down for us. There's so many just sweet spirits that jumped in and really helped us out. Background vocals, and my bass player in my band, Larry Fulcher, is playing on a couple of the tunes. I think he's on War Pigs. And, what are you listening to? I know he's on that. My drummer, Samantha's playing spoons. She came in and laid down some spoon tracks for Richland Women, and that was fun. I know people love that live, and I had never recorded it. I've been doing it live for many years. We finally got to a place and a record that this song really works with. So I'm really pleased to have a good portion of my band on this record, too, a live band.
Is your live band been together and pretty much stable for a long time now, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I've known Samantha for about 20 years now. She and I started out in two separate bands. She had a jazz fusion band, and I had a local band here in the Brazos Valley region, in Austin area. So we've known each other for a long period of time. We've played together for about 15 of those years. So Larry came to us maybe about 4 years ago. He still plays with and travels with the Phantom Blues Band and Taj Mahal. So we get him when we can. I have another bass player, Tanya Richardson, who's my cousin, and she pops in once in a while too. She popped out of the band to drive trucks. She wanted to do her own thing, which I think is great, So, yeah, a lot of the folks I've had with me for a long time. Yeah, they're like family.
I know that you just came off the road. You played a few dates, and now you've got, I think starting later this week, you've got a more extensive tour to start. I think it was last week, you were up in New York and you did the Aretha Franklin tribute at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, that was a treat.
It was too bad Aretha couldn't be there for that.
It really was. It was, for me, it was just a treat to be there as a fan. I got a chance to talk to and stand next to and sing with so many people I've admired in this business, from Melissa Etheridge, Kenny Loggins, Alan Stone, another young soul singer. He and I sat and talked about, growing up and living in the country in this music industry, trying to live close enough to an airport so you can get out and tour. Yeah, it was a really fun night. CeeLo Green, getting a chance to hang out with him and take pictures and selfies, just be silly with. And that hall, just getting a chance, an opportunity to sing in that hall was huge for me. And I see what the big deal, it's a hall that is really built for sound. I see the big deal in that hall. I know there's a lot of famous people that have come through there, but singing there is an experience. It was electrifying to sing in that hall.
It was a really pretty amazing lineup, and the music that was sung, of course, being Aretha's it was an amazing set list that I saw on it. I know Aretha doesn't travel too much anymore. I had the honor of seeing her, I think it was 2 summers ago at a jazz festival, and she still is amazing, but I know that she wants her career to be winding down now, and she doesn't fly, so it gets hard for her this time of year to get places.
Yeah, I kind of half expected her to be there, so... but we were all there to celebrate her music and what she's done to turn music around, and that made me proud to be involved in that. I did hear that she would get a chance to hear the performances, though, so that made me feel really good. Yeah, it was a really fun time.
Ruthie Foster's new album, Joy Comes Back, will hit stores this Friday, March 24th. We'll be back soon with more editions of the VVN Music Podcast, including our talk with Michael Schenker. Remember that you can hear the VVN Music Podcast via iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Libsyn, and the VVN Music website. For the latest news on the veteran artists of rock, pop, soul, country, folk, and blues, go to vvnmusic.com. If you have any comments or questions about the website or this podcast, please send them to vvnnetwork@gmail.com. Our theme music is performed by Yahar. This program was recorded on March 20th, 2017. The VVN Music Podcast is a production of the VVN Network, copyright 2017.